And I think we will just go ahead and get started. Thank you all for making time, this afternoon. And like I said, I'm recording this and it'll be available on our YouTube channel after this. If you have specific questions, reach out to us after this. But um, yeah, just glad to answer any questions. So Karen, you want to get us started?
Yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Karen Geschko. I'm the Assistant Director at the Wisconsin Arts Board. And Caitlin, did you introduce your role within the Arts
I
Board,
did
one of your many
no.
roles?
Why would I? I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator here at the Arts Board, and I also kind of oversee the arts ed portion of the Creative Communities grants.
And also, yeah, the folk arts, yes. And I oversee the local arts component. So this is always a kind of a fun time. It's about a week out from the deadline. People have been thinking about their projects and have some questions generally that they want to come in and either ask or hear what other people are asking that they may not be thinking about. So thanks for taking some time and joining us as you can. Um, we wanted to do a quick overview of what the Arts Board is and what the Creative Communities program is and what its intent is, and then really open it up to you guys. At the end, we're going to send you off with a celebratory link to a walking you through the online application step-by-step video that we have on our YouTube channel. Rather than take you through it again today, that is on our YouTube channel. You can see it anytime. And then ask us questions afterwards if you have questions about that part of things. But for now, yeah, just wanted to say that the Arts Board is celebrating its 50th anniversary. We're the state arts agency in Wisconsin. Every state has one. We get funding from the National Endowment for the Arts and our state legislature that matches that NEA grant. And then we in turn send those dollars out in the form of either technical assistance and workshop and those kinds of things, or in through our grant programs. And this grant program, Creative Communities, is our project support grant program. As Caitlin mentioned, it has three components: local arts, folk arts, and arts education. And they each have a sort of a different focus in the intent of the project and in the way the project maybe interacts with the community. So the local arts component, I'll just speak to that and then turn it to you for the other two, Caitlin, focuses on local arts, the creation and development of arts at the local level. It's a pretty broad category. It's kind of the catch-all category, which is kind of what I love about it. It is not as specific as arts ed and folk arts. And you want to talk about those for a sec?
Yeah, sure. So arts education is, what it sounds, sort of projects focused on creating arts opportunities for and experiences for K-12 students specifically. And that, can include after school, summer programming, inside school, outside of school, um, educator workshops, residencies. It's really, and happy to talk about other specific examples there, but there's some flexibility within that one as well. And then folk and traditional arts is focused, we typically say art forms and traditions that are rooted in and reflective of the cultural communities in Wisconsin. So those might emerge from shared ethnicity, from a recreational pursuit, from a language, a religion, a region. Um, I think that covers that
Yeah,
mostly.
yeah,
But
yeah.
those we really focus on sort of enhancing appreciation for and ensuring the continuation of those traditions and traditional art forms.
Yeah, and if you aren't sure which category you fit in, we are more than happy to give you our opinion. We've been doing this work for a while, and we tend to know where projects will most likely be successful if there is some crossover, like an arts ed and a local arts grant. Which one does it go to? Happy to give our opinion. Each grouping, so like the local arts, folk arts, and arts ed, each have their own panels. So those groups of applications will go to a separate group of reviewers. And you will be invited, if you are invited to phase two to submit a full application, you'll be invited to observe that panel. I mean, you can observe it anyway, but you'll be able to see that review happening in real time via Zoom. So, and we have the dates for those panels posted on the website. One other thing about that, what was that? Phase one and phase two. It's an unusual program, this Creative Communities, in that rather than ask you to put in a whole lot of effort and have and be uncertain about how the panel will respond to your project proposal, we have kind of a glorified letter of intent in phase one, which is share your idea in basically a page and give us some boilerplate information. Let us know how much you think your project is, how much you think you're going to be asking in the grant, how much you think the project might cost. And then the panel will look at those phase one applications and they will say, these are the ones that we feel are really strongly connected with the intent of the grant program. And we're going to invite them in to submit a full-on phase two application, which is due in early April. Or they're gonna say, this doesn't feel like it doesn't seem like from what I can read that this is really ready and it's gonna have a good shot at getting the funding. So we're gonna say no, and Arts Board staff, please reach out to these folks and see if they want to work with you and maybe submit an application next year. So that's kind of how it goes. And I've been talking for a bit, so I'm gonna stop. Caitlin, anything I forgot before we open this up for questions?
Not before we open it up. I'd say let's just open it up, and then we have a couple FAQs, that come up almost every year.
Did you get any questions in advance from anybody?
I got a couple emails, and I sort of followed up. Some were some big picture questions about creative communities, so I sort of directed them to the guidelines and to our website. But no really specific burning questions. So I'd say there's a lot
Open
of
it
us
up.
here. I think if your video's on, feel free to actually raise your hand if you want to use the raised hand icon, or if you want to put a note in the chat, we can field questions that way.
That would be great. Yes.
I have a question.
Anne.
Yeah. Hi. So this is the first time I'm going to be writing one of these letter of intents. I actually work for the city of Oshkosh, and then I work for parks and senior center. So we have some projects for both the zoo and the senior center. So if you had to describe a slam dunk letter of intent, can you give me some kind of scope of what the panel is kind of looking to hear?
Yes. And this is sort of the grant proposal writing 101 thing anyway. If we ask a question, please just answer it. Please don't ignore. If we ask for a timeline, please give a timeline. If we're asking whatever we ask for. And Caitlin, can you bring that phase one narrative question up? I don't have it right in front of me for whatever reason. And then they're going to be looking for community involvement. And so this is very much a program that is focused on working with the community rather than sitting in your space and doing something for the community. Community voice and in community engagement is really important to this panel and this program. Okay. So you're going to want to say in that 450 word space or whatever, you're going to want to say, we've been talking to these groups. We know this is a need. This project is a need in our community because of X, Y, and Z. Or we're really passionate about this particular art form, and we know it's going to resonate with the community because of X, Y, and Z. Something like that. Caitlin, can you actually share the wording of that question?
I just put it in the chat, but it really is. It's be sure to address each of these bullet points, and it's an introduction of your organization. It's the description of the project, the reasons or the goals behind the project, who will do what in terms of, project leaders, artists, community members, and what is the last piece? The timeline. So just a real general timeline for phase one, and then there will be a specific question for timeline in the phase two narrative.
Yeah. And to be clear, that's perfect. Thank you. And to be clear, we're not looking for like a month by month blowout right now. It's February of 24. And we know that this thing, for some of you, might not happen until May of 25. So then we're just looking for kind of a scope of what happens within the grant period, which is July 1st through June 30th. So whatever pre-planning you're doing, awesome. When we're talking about a timeline, and you can even say that, like before July 1st, we're going to be doing this kind of planning, but the grant period itself starts July 1. That's when expenses can be accrued. That's when project activities that we're going to be supporting can happen. And so between that, if it's just a couple weekends in July, if it's a year-long thing, a general timeline. You do not have to be super specific,
Okay.
but that's really going to be helpful.
Yeah, that kind of helps because we were getting a little paralyzed with thinking that we have to artists lined up by, and it's been difficult to herd everyone together to
Yeah,
come.
I mean, if you don't have the artists yet with whom you plan to work, you're still kind of figuring out how you're going to select them, where you're going to find them, then share your selection process. Share the criteria that you're going to use. Share the kind of artist you're looking for. Someone super experienced, someone who has done this kind of thing before, just somebody who is just emerging, and part of the project's intent is to support emerging artists.
Okay.
Whatever your answer to those things are. And I
Okay.
will say, and this is a dangerous thing to say a week out, but Caitlin and I, if we can, are willing to look at drafts. If you'd like to put one in front of us, but please put it in front of us like soon, like not next Wednesday. Would
No,
be awesome.
no,
Carrie,
this is helpful
good.
that because we do understand like what kind of uh selection process, the topics, the skills that we're looking for, but we
Great.
just don't have who.
Your challenge is going to be to fit all that and give the panel a sense that you do know that in
Yeah,
450 words,
yeah.
right? So good luck with that. I think you can do it. And the organization piece, the describe your organization piece, honestly, when you get into phase one, we're going to be asking you, you register within our online application, and there's a section there that talks about organizational history. So that's where you're going to put the majority of your information. So in the phase one narrative, you're going to do just a couple of sentences and send them to the C organizational history, because they're going to see it right there. Yeah, Caitlin, does
Yeah.
that make sense? Advice
And
wise?
that piece in that link that we'll send uh, with that will just walk you through the whole process of
Yes.
applying. That mission statement and organizational history piece that is included there.
And we'll probably be reiterating some of this in the video too, because it was from last year's Q&A, and we just said, there's no reason to reinvent that. It's there. People can look at that. And I'm going to jump to Carrie here because she's had her hand up.
Thanks so much. I just have a couple quick questions. One thing I'm unclear of is how long out we can have this project. So we have a project that is a partnership with our Parks and Rec department. It's starting this summer. It's going to be an ongoing project from here on out. When, as far as the grant is concerned, when can we start the grant and how far out can we go?
Yeah. So what you're actually talking about is developing a program. The difference between projects, finite beginning, finite end, and programs is just that, that timeline that continues on. So I would frame this for the panel. If you're looking to pilot a program, right? So these are the early years of that program. You're making sure that this thing is viable and it's going to happen, and hopefully it will, and it'll go on for forever, whatever. But you will want to frame this as you're piloting year one of this Parks and Rec project, that will eventually, if all goes well, morph into a program, and you can talk about that down the road. Okay. But right now, you're going to focus them on the fact that you are initiating something and what that timeline of that first year is. Is it a 12-month program, Carrie, or is it just summer? What is it?
It's annual. It goes year round. So.
Okay. So yeah, so you'll want to, so that might be something to talk about more offline, because this program is definitely not meant to support ongoing programming. It is meant to support like pilot programs and that kind, which sounds like that's what this is. But yeah, you're going to be talking about, at least in phase two, provided that you're invited to that, you're going to be talking about the impact that you expect this to have on your community, that kind of thing. So there will be a lot of project related language in the application form that you'll wrestle through, as you know from past years, I think.
Okay. Can I reach out to you more by email or have a phone conversation?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see a couple questions in the chat. And I think back to Anne, she said, do invited artists have to meet certain criteria or credentials? I would say that's really
up to you.
to you and you know would be appropriate to the project. And
yeah, I would add that if you're like going to do a piece of public art and the artist that you've chosen has no experience with developing a piece of public art, then the panel's probably going to question that choice, right? I don't see you making that decision. So that's where they get involved and concerned. They're not going to be, they will be interested in looking at the biographical paragraph on the artist or the resume or the whatever it is that you submit in phase two. But they'll look at it carefully only if there's something that gives them a red flag that, why did they choose this particular artist for this particular project? And you can clarify that within your narrative if you think it will be a concern.
When I see your question, do you mind hopping on? And I'm just not, I want to make sure I'm understanding. You're saying if we're piloting a program, what funds should we be thinking of for establishing a program long term? Is that other funding sources that you're looking for establishing, for continuing the project beyond this first couple of years? Because this program really does support, projects that are new within a 3-year span.
Yes, I'd like to see the program go on.
Darn it.
Shoot.
Catherine, yeah, I'm not quite clear either. So maybe we can talk offline about that afterwards. I'm actually not going to be available via phone for the rest of the afternoon. Caitlin,
I'm
will
here.
You
Catherine,
yeah.
if you want to send me an email or give me a call, I'm happy to
Awesome. Great.
try to help.
What other questions are out there? Yeah, Rebecca. You are muted.
We can't
Rebecca,
hear you.
you're muted.
Okay, our project is 3 years long so it kind of sounds like some others, but the funding I was looking for was something that's going to be in the first year, because we're writing 8 children's books, a lot of the early African American settlers in La Crosse. We've already done 11 videos of the stories, and now we're doing the children's stories because the videos were not for the elementary schools. The videos were for the high school students. But anyway, we want to be able to do professional development. So that's what we were looking for the funding for, is to be able to do the professional development with the elementary ed teachers. So I'm wondering if, because we have so many grants in already on the book with the books, is that something that's going to be, because we have so much money funding in, are you going to look at us, oh, they have so much money already, they don't need any more funding?
Yeah, I would, and Caitlin, please jump in too, but I would focus the proposal on the professional development piece, the piece that you are looking for funding for, okay, which is frankly much more fundable than publishing a book or that kind of thing. So that creative process with the teachers, and I'm assuming you're talking about professional development with teachers.
Yes, because a lot of times.
So then I think, and Caitlin, I don't know why I'm talking arts ed when this is your area, but I will just finish the thought by saying that if there's a way for you to connect some of the authors or the storytellers or the creating artists in with that professional development and help them think about and maybe engage with the teachers in the classroom with the book over the course of a year, that kind of project, I think the panel could wrap its head around fairly quickly.
The artist is going to be, the artist is from La Crosse, and he is the author for all the 8 books, and he is a performer in one of the videos, and he is also in the book. So he is going to go to read the book in the classroom. So he's actively involved in the whole process. So he's going to be part of the professional development as well. I was just overly concerned that you would see that we have $120,000 already in our grant funding, in submitting our budget, and you would already say you have too much money already, and you'd say.
So Rebecca, that's a really good concern. In this case, you're not going to include 100,000. You're just going to be including the amount of money it takes to run this particular part of the project.
Okay, because you're asking in the
whatever,
for what kind of matching funds and stuff,
right?
Because I've started doing the grant already, and so I noticed that I'd be submitting that as well.
Yeah, so just for this portion, right? So yes, matching funds, and we can talk about that and should, but it's also on the video. So all the funds that you receive from us need to be matched, either with cash or a combo of cash in kind. And so yeah. So just keep the budget and the project focused on this very specific
professional development. Okay, because that's what I'm looking for. It's because the other parts of my grants do not cover my professional development, and that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah. Megan, I just answered your question in the chat. Sadie, I see your hand up. And Caitlin, I'm sorry to jump for just a sec. Caitlin, did you have anything else to add to that?
That's what I would have said too. And I would have said, Rebecca, when we orient our panelists, we say that financial need is not one of the criteria that they review applications on. But I think that in this case, because you're not focused, we can talk offline about it too if you have specific questions. But I think because the project budget will be really specific to that professional development component, they won't see that full, all that funding that you might have for the book piece. So okay, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen. I'm just wondering where Oneida Nation Arts programs, two re-granting programs that we do, where does that fall in? Is it like a program, or like when you were talking about it earlier, or how do I frame it in the application?
The re-granting program is a totally different application, and it has nothing to do with creative communities.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you guys thinking about putting in an application to creative communities too, or are you just focusing on re-granting this year?
Re-granting.
Awesome. Okay. Sadie, maybe you and I can talk or email about that. I'd be happy to walk you through that application tomorrow morning.
Okay, that sounds good.
Tomorrow afternoon early. Let's connect via email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Yeah. Other questions that you'd like to ask or want somebody else to ask?
Christopher, you raising your hand there? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Christo from the North Shore Library in the Milwaukee area. We did an experiment last year where we did an inaugural art fair. We recruited artists, we advertised throughout the 4 communities that our library serves, and it was a great success, both for the local artists. It was all local artists who came to show their art, and hundreds and hundreds of community residents who came to the library for a specified afternoon and interacted with those artists. So it generated a lot of excitement. It happens that we are moving to a new facility. It is being built now. We expect to move in next fall. We're hoping, all of my fingers and toes are crossed. What we are looking to do is make more continuous that interaction between local artists and our library patrons who came in to participate, and some people who were not library patrons who came in to participate in our inaugural event. So there's a couple of aspects to this. One, we're moving into a new library, and we have the option to put art room space in our new library. But we need help with supplies. The word equipment sounds too capital intensive, but there's things like art display racks, artistic supplies. We have artists who want to come and do workshops And that's what the purpose of all this is. Does this pass the sanity check for
Yeah.
local arts?
Yeah, and I think I would encourage you to talk to the Bubbler, which is a artist workspace embedded within the Madison Central Library. So
The
that's kind of,
Bubbler?
it's called the Bubbler. Yep, Bubbler. And if you Google Bubbler and Madison Public Library, it will take you to where you want to go. And I mention it only because it sounds like one of the things that they do is actually they do workshops, but also they have kind of a residency program. So it allows the artist and the community to deepen that artistic creative process experience over time instead of just a one-off or a series of workshops.
Right.
And so I commend that idea to you, not pushing it at all, but just adding it to the mix of things you're considering. And then I would say display shelves, maybe not, but certainly as you bring artists in for a series of workshops to connect in with the community, they'll need supplies. And so embedding those supply costs into the budget makes a lot of sense. I think the larger question that the panel will want to know about is why. This is really cool, but why is this the right thing for the library to do with its community right now? Are you looking, and there could be many reasons, right? So they're just wanting to know which one you're choosing. Is it to raise up the profile of the artist in your community and get them to have and help the community understand about all of the creativity and creative people that are there? Is it to help people understand their own creativity by connecting in with their neighbor artists and learning how to create artwork themselves? You know, whatever those answers are, they'll want to know that, and then they'll want to know how many public facing activities you'll have over the course of a 3-month period, a year period, whatever that period of time is. Yeah, and why you think it's Saturday mornings are best or Tuesday nights are best, or basically they'll want to hear from you that you have connected in with your community and your community has said, oh yeah, this is absolutely what we want and need.
Okay.
So.
Okay. The art racks thing, just to put it out there so that it's not dismissed, by not owning them, part of what gets this started is that we intend to have an art fair again this year. We spent a lot of money renting art racks last year.
You should absolutely buy them.
Yeah.
You should absolutely buy them. I'm just not sure the grant will cover that part. But
Okay.
you should absolutely buy them. Absolutely. I didn't mean to dismiss that at all. I was thinking purely from a grants related lens.
Okay.
And it goes back to that that capital expense piece that you were talking about. Now, honestly, depending on the cost of those, and we should probably talk offline about this, you might be able to include that in your in this project proposal. And that could make a lot of sense, especially because you're piloting something new. And this is part of what it will take to make that thing happen.
Okay, great.
But yeah.
And And if not, that investment in those can be part of that match that is required for the grant.
Understand.
Right.
And I saw Catherine ask in the chat, Chris, is that in Glendale? Where's the new library going to be?
The new library will be in one of the other of the 4 communities, and that happens to be Bayside.
Bayside, okay.
Yeah. Glendale is where we are now.
Got it.
All right, what else is out there that you're wondering about? And
asking a lot of questions, but I'm seeing in the chat that it said applicants that have not applied in the past need to send have to do something about saying their intent.
Mm-hmm.
Is that so? That has to be done today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there a link?
And it's basically an email to Caitlin or to me or to the artist board saying we intend to apply. And we use it so that we know that we're actually talking to nonprofit organizations, right?
Okay.
Or people, and if they don't have nonprofits, as we can give them a heads up, they need to find a fiscal receiver and be working toward their own. So that's another conversation. So it's just a way for us to help you not waste your time putting in a phase 1 application that's just not enough, just not eligible. So, you know, a scope
Totally
of the project and what
appreciate
that is, a couple sentences, and then if we're curious and we have the capacity, we'll say, tell us more, or sounds good on the surface, go for it.
Okay, excellent. And then because I work with two nonprofits and help with grant funding, can I send one email, or is it better to send two emails for, you know, one for each entity?
So different applications are different applicants?
Yeah,
Yeah.
different
Send one, send one for each. That'd be
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious, how many people thought that this was like a mandatory thing?
It said
Hopefully,
optional.
hopefully nobody, right? Good, it is optional. I see Ryan shaking his head, so that's good.
For people who have never done it, it was self-required.
Fair, fair enough. And it's hard to believe that we've answered every question that you might possibly have, but also, you know, you might have just wanted to check in and just hear what the other questions were and get the overscope of what it is that this thing intends to do. Um,
I
I
have
guess,
another question.
yeah,
It's probably less complicated. This year, our art fair is intended to be held in August, like it was last year. And the funding availability wording of what I read on the website was that, you know, your funding might be delayed by any number of things. Then, like, what happens?
that's a great question. Thank you. So if you are awarded a grant, but you don't get your grant check before your project happens, what we often encourage people to do is take the grant award letter to the bank and say, we're requesting a loan for this amount. We know we're going to get this funding. We're just not sure when.
Okay.
That often works. Sometimes people just get so, you know, whatever, and they just, like a board of an organization or whatever will put the money in, and then when the grant check comes, they'll just reimburse themselves, and that's totally fine.
So that's okay.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Good question, thank you. And grants are a minimum of 1,500 and a maximum of 6,000 right now. So these are really catalytic grants in some cases where people, they may have a much bigger budgeted project, and they use the arts boards. Look, we went through this rigorous process. We received a state arts grant. Therefore, we are a really good investment, you know, to their local businesses and sponsors and other people in their community. So they use it to catalyze local giving. I will put that out there. And also, I think we did talk about the fact that if you have a project that's, you know, beginning now or May or whatever, the piece that we need to know about, panel needs to know about, is the piece that starts July 1 or later. It gets muddy if you know, sometimes we've had applications come in where it's a summer project and it begins in June, July, August, and ends in mid-September. Then we ask them to prorate the budget and the narrative to just talk about this piece that's happening July 1. You know, like, here's a little pre-context about what's happening before the project official start date, but this is what happens July 1 and onward. That is sometimes a question that comes up. Caitlin, you mentioned some FAQs. Were there any that we did not touch on that you think we should?
I think last year we noted the number of phase one applications for each subcategory, and you know, how many were invited onto phase two, and then how many phase two applications we received and then were funded. And I'm happy to run through those numbers.
Yeah.
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 Arts Ed last year we saw 27 phase one applications. 23 were then invited onto phase two. 19 followed up and actually submitted a phase two application, and all 19 of those were funded. For folk and traditional arts, we had 8 phase one applications, 5 were invited onto phase two, and of those 5, 4 were funded in the spring. And then for local arts, we had 38 phase one applications. 27 of those were invited onto phase two, 21 applied, and 16 were funded. So that just gives you a sense of the landscape, and it can really vary. It has every year since COVID.
Yeah, that 38 from last year, almost 40, is a fairly typical since the pandemic reverb has been hitting. we may see an increase as time goes on. Not sure, but yeah. Yeah, they don't want to invite applicants to come into phase 2 and put that time into that process unless the panel feels that they have a good chance, that the applicant has a good chance of being funded. So,
Karen, you touched on, can projects begin before July 1st and mentioned that kind of prorating. If there are activities that started before then, your budget and request will reflect that sort of prorating starting July 1st. And I think we touch on that in the link that I'm going to add to the chat.
And I just saw Rebecca's hand up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I had mentioned about sending an email to you if this is the first time we were applying. This is the first time I'm applying. My fiscal agent is the La Crosse County Historical Society. I've already sent my application in, but you sent it back because I didn't have the proper financial paperwork or something. Do you still want me to send the email saying that the La Crosse County Historical Society is my fiscal agent?
No, at this point, we were just going to try to save you that extra back and forth, but you're in it, you've done it, so
okay.
There it is.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask. I don't want to miss a step.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I think one more question that tends to come up sometimes, and I think you started to touch on this, but necessary to have community partners committed by phase 1. This is sort of similar to, do I have to have identified the artist by next week? But do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, you don't need to have those commitments by your partners. It'd be great if you do, but at least let the panel know that you're in the process of connecting with those organizations or partners. And if you can if you can indicate that they are already committed, that's great. But again, they are going to understand that some of these projects are over 12 months out, and so you're still in the process. But they will want to know that you've thought about who those partners are going to be, and you've begun reaching out and letting them know, hey, we're applying for a grant to do this, and we'd really like to connect with you on making it happen. So just even as simple as that, it would be helpful. Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, well, just to piggyback off that, does like accurate financial numbers from that organization help if they've said we can commit, say, $400? Like, is that a good tidbit to add?
No. So in phase 1, you don't need to worry about that. I was thinking more of partnering to make something happen. I wasn't thinking about funders.
Okay.
So you can say just, we're already in talks with funders and have already begun raising funds successfully. You don't have to give any details in phase 1 about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then what I'm thinking about, not a question, but just a thought, like, so I run a Baroque concert series, and I'm thinking about the word, this is a community grant, and I'm thinking about communities, and I'm like, so in one way as you know from what I proposed last year, that we are reaching out to certain communities of people to perform for them. But I in this sense, I've been in this conversation, or been listening to everyone, I've been thinking, like, in a way though, there's a musician community that we are also trying to support, and then that's kind of part of our outlook on things, is giving opportunities to local musicians to perform. Guess I'm thinking is that is something that could be mentioned a bit more as there's dual communities that we're trying to reach out to and provide opportunities for either performing or listening, I guess. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing to point out to the panel that the work that you do serves multiple communities.
Okay.
And what they're going to want to know is how what you want to offer meets a need. How it's one thing to want to share your art and your creativity out in the community. It's another thing for the community to have articulated that they want that is something that they need that is something that will uplift, hearts and minds and moods and all the things. And so to have done that reaching out as you were talking about and getting some of those places that you want to perform in to say, oh yeah, we absolutely want you, we need you, and this is why, to start gathering that information to share it so that the panel understands you're not just doing something for the community, you're doing something in conversation and programming with the community.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Other questions from the group? Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead in the chat and add that link that I've mentioned to last year's Q&A session where we really walk through the full application process. And it starts at that point, but feel free to review any of it beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you. No judgment on those of you who are not able to turn your cameras on, because I totally get that sometimes. But thank you to those of you who were. It was nice to see your faces and your smiles, and appreciate the questions that you all were
Karen,
able to.
I see one more here.
Yeah, what's
and
that?
Rebecca sent it just to me, I think. Great ways to reach out to the community to get those programming conversations started. That's a big question.
Yeah, Rebecca, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much for offering the program because I enjoyed listening to everything.
Oh, that was other Rebecca, actually, Karen. Rebecca Dieter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca with the question, did she head out?
No, she's here.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
I'd love to ask about that because we've had we've had a survey and we've had a parent meeting. What are other ways that people have found that are really effective for finding out desires of your community?
Can you talk a minute about what organization you are and what community you're serving?
I'm serving Northwoods Strings, and we work throughout rural northwestern Wisconsin, providing string music education.
Perfect, thank you. It's just nice for everybody to have that kind of context. And so, yeah, ways to reach out. And you've done surveys with whom?
We've done surveys with our parents that we're currently serving.
So the kids who are playing with you, their parents, you've surveyed them.
Mm-hmm.
And what kinds of questions are you asking them in your surveys? And what is it that you want to know about reaching out? Are you reaching out for students? Are you reaching out for performance gigs? Are you reaching out for board members? Are you reaching out for all of the above?
I think we're reaching out at this point, for programming. I know it's a need because we're getting requests for string education from 8 different counties across northwestern Wisconsin. So we're just mostly talking to our parents about what they'd like to see for programming.
Okay, so you are reaching out to parents of students who are already engaged and potential parents who might want their children to be engaged in the work. Is that what you're, okay, got it. And you'd like to do more of that second. Yeah, I mean, what kind of response are you getting so far, and what do you think is lacking? Or are you feeling like you're not reaching as many parents as would be interested if you could just find out where the heck they were?
I think we're getting probably 1/10 of our parents responding to the survey. Maybe that's an email issue more than anything else.
And these are potential parents?
These are current parents.
Oh. Okay, so you're looking within your finite community to get more input into your programming.
Right. What are ways that people go to seek that input in their community?
Got it. So, I mean, there's wisdom in this room, the Zoom room, for those of you who can stay on. It's 1 o'clock. So if anybody wants to open up and share some thoughts, please do. I will share the thought that, are you meeting in person right now, right? The kids are performing in person? Or
they're performing occasionally in person, but mostly it's online.
So you're doing classes online?
we're doing our individual lessons online and we're doing our in-person group work together.
And so I gotcha. So there are a couple of ways to do that. When you have people in person, to ask parents a month in advance to come or plan to stay 15 minutes after or come 15 minutes earlier. So you have that in-person chance to, eye to eye and either ask the questions then and get the input then, or say, can we set up a time? Because it's easier to ignore an email than it is someone looking at you and saying, can we set up a time? So that's one idea. Another is to ask the kids and email the parents and say, 5 minutes before the lesson starts, we want some time with a parent or afterwards. And again, a month out or whatever. So you're giving them plenty of lead time. But sometimes that's helpful. Honestly, just getting a survey about and thinking about the questions that you ask. A question of what do you want to see programming wise, or what do you want to see the kinds of music that your kids are playing, or what do you want to see in terms of performances out in the community. It depends on how you're framing the question. If it's broad, it's easy to ignore. If it's specific, then it's easier for people to wrap their heads around and respond to, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Evaluation is, I'm a bit of an evaluation geek. I really, really love it. And sometime not during grant season, if you want to share your survey or some questions that you want to ask with me, I'd be really happy to bounce those off and maybe hone some down or think about some different ways of articulating or asking.
Thank you.
Yeah. All righty.
And Becky in the chat here said, have you considered incentivizing the surveys? Becky, do you want to, chime in and say how you've done that or consider doing that?
Well, it's called a bribe. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I'm a big fan of incentivizing surveys. If I'm not getting enough feedback, and really targeting surveys from the people I want to hear from. So I'm trying to think of how to vague this up because I work with several different clients. If there's someone who is choosing to not continue in the program, that's who I really want to hear from. So I will incentivize that survey the most. So whether that's a $5 gift card to Collectivo or offering a discount if it's a paid program, just something that really shows that you value their time and that they're taking when they agree to talk to you about their experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. And of course, there's a challenge in a smaller community where if somebody gets an incentive and somebody doesn't, they're like, excuse me, I answered that survey. Where's my $5, thing to collect? So, but yes, I really appreciate that, that point. Sometimes incentives are simple and really important. If there is nothing else, I'm going to wish you all a really great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing your phase 1 applications. Please reach out if you have questions.
Thanks very much for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for participating.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye, everybody.